You're conditioned to react to a circumstance, and based on the circumstance, you're going to automatically, muscle memory driven, react to prepare and to do what you need to do to overcome whatever that situation is. You know, we were talking about leadership, your storylines, or your history is just really impressive to me. My military prowess was not near what you guys was. Of course, I was back in the 80s, and we had President Reagan, and everybody was scared to fight with him, so we didn't really have real active war things happening at the time. And so one of the things I love about sitting with you guys is you really make me feel like, wow, I was in. I wasn't really in, but I was in. I wanted to fight, you know. There was just no one to fight because we had such good leadership. Everybody was scared to fight America back when I was in. My president wanted to kick some booty. Reagan. All right. And so I really, you know, I wanted you to touch on a little bit about you hit that magical E9, which is really cool. But I'd like you to step from there into tell Bear and I what leadership really means and why it's so important. You touched on it a minute ago when we were talking about, you know, when we talk about leadership, some guys thought they had a great time in the military. Some guys thought it wasn't so great. For me, I had some really bad leaders. So I didn't stay in near as long. And it was extremely tough on me because I wanted to be a career guy. I really did. Now, my wife, absolutely not. So, but I had some terrible leaders. In fact, I'm going to be honest. I can say it now because they're probably not even on this earth anymore. But they were jerks.
If they are, piss on them.
They were just jerks, okay? And so I'd love for you to touch on that, about how important in the military leadership is as far as motivating the troops, but at the same time, when you get out, how does that transfer into, hey, I can lead today in the business world because I learned these principles. You know what I'm saying? Just a thought.
No, absolutely. And I would say that I'll go back to what I said in part one. Compassion, respect, and empathy. I think those things, then it goes back into also, which kind of, I think goes with grace and forgiveness. And then, of course, patience and willing to accept failure. I think with my soldiers, like if I think back, I'll talk a little bit about failure. There are 3 very distinct times that I let my emotional quotient get to me. Where when I reflected back on it, no one had to tell me. I reflected myself, and it was when I lost that emotional quotient because of the way the individual was acting. One time I was newly E5, and it was an E4 that basically was just wasting assets. I think we were at the National Training Center at the time. Another time would have been when one of my soldiers in the 1776 decided to respond in a way in front of an E7 when I was a first sergeant on something she thought I was doing, and that was letting people get taped again for their body fat composition.
Interesting.
And I found out that, no, that wasn't me that was doing that. It was somebody else that was doing that. But when I went back to go talk to her outside of the room, I was like, because I told her, I was like, hey, you need to leave the room. Let's go talk somewhere else. And when I went back to go talk to her, she went off. And the individual had done this before with other individuals. And I think at that time, think about it, Sergeant Major's Academy, operations, and I was also the first sergeant at the time. So I had a lot of stress going on, and then my emotional quotient took over. And of course it became more of a this than more of a, hey, let's sit down and talk about this and figure this out.
Dreaded knife hand.
Yeah. So, and I didn't literally do the knife hand, but that's pretty much like what was going on. So that to me, like, and there was one other time that happened, and I'm trying to think back to but there was 3 very distinct times that I let my EQ
Get the best of
get the best of me.
Man, I can tell you, every time I got promoted, when I was in the military, when I was active duty, I failed at every rank, at every level. But that's also that self-awareness, that emotional quotient that you're talking about. Being self-aware, knowing that you failed and wanting to do better and grow from that experience, that's what got me promoted to the next level. That's what kept me going. So, I mean, those failures, those are absolutely necessary to form who you are, who you're supposed to become in life. You need those.
Well, it's in those minutes of failure, that's when we really grow. Because we self-identify the issues that have caused us to go down a path that it's not very productive, and all of a sudden we have to stop and analyze and say, oh my goodness, this isn't working the way I need it to work. And we have to grow and mature a little bit so we get back on the right path, start doing the right things, and in the middle of the struggle, we got strong. So I think it's important. You can't succeed unless you fail. That's the bottom line. I don't believe there's any success without some level of failure somewhere across the world, across your lifespan. So, what do you think, Chris? Defer?
No, I think like absolutely I agree with you. And there's looking back on those leaders that I think most of us in the military had at least one of those leaders. And you could see where they would fail. And they failed themselves, but they failed the individuals around them. And of course they failed the organization. Because with that you lose people, you lose troops. Because they go, I'm not re-upping for this crap. I'm not doing this no more. Because of those individuals. And it goes into ego. So we can talk a little bit about ego. Check your ego at the door, man. And that, I think people have a hard time with that. But if you think about it too, there's a lot of egos running around the military. And we have a lot of testosterone. We're trained to kill. You know, regardless, most of us that have been in, you look at it and go, okay, most of the time we're not sitting there thinking kill the enemy. No, but in training, they are, what's the word I'm looking for?
You're conditioned.
Yes.
Operant conditioning.
You're to react. You're conditioned to react to a circumstance, and based on the circumstance, you're going to automatically muscle memory driven react to prepare and to do what you need to do to overcome whatever that situation is. And that's what training does.
Well, you think about the conditioning, right? There was a period of time where they just shot at paper targets. And then they came out with Ivan. Ivan's what? A silhouette of a human being.
Yeah,
exactly.
That target.
And then when you're running and you're doing fixed bayonets, you're doing fixed bayonets training. Like, obviously, the only time I did that was in basic training, which I think was most of us. But still, the whole point is to get you used to at a human silhouette, sticking them with your bayonet, like, and up close. All that plays into what's going on at the time. But I would say, like, dial into, like, going back to the ego. People that we tend to work with on a daily basis. And I think, like, recently, so I'll talk a little bit, like, about, for myself, as you guys both know, I ended up getting moved into a president position of the foundation that we all work for. And it's like you have to take a step back. You're the operations director at one point, and the way that you treat people as an ops director is completely different. How you're going to treat somebody in a president position. Two completely different roles on how you interact with the directors and everyone else. And I like to say, I think I mentioned it to you guys earlier, how do you deal with someone that doesn't like you or is constantly putting you down? You ignore them. And you focus on you and what you're supposed to do. Who cares what they're doing? Focus on yourself. Well, that's what we did. That's what I did. And then Goggins popped out and said I took some souls. And that was unexpected. But if you ignore the others around you and what they're doing and just focus on what you're doing, you end up taking souls without trying. It was a very unexpected thing, and I'm still humbled by it. But I'm not letting it go to my head. I think I've made it very clear, and you guys can attest to it. I think on multiple occasions, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Everyone here is just as important as everybody else is in this organization in order to do what we need to do. And to me, it's like that's getting people to try to get them to understand. If I'm the president and you're not, and I'm telling you that I'm not the smartest guy in the room and I'm not the most important guy, then you're probably not either. And to humble yourself and check that ego.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fail to do that. I think with time, you got to be, as a leader, you got to be someone for others to emulate. And that's that ethical leader piece in me to go, okay, it's like also, what are we supposed to do as Christians, Pastor? What's our job? To spread the word, right?
Yeah, and we spread the word not with words. Honestly, I try to tell everyone I come into contact with, it's not about the words I say. It's about the way I live. It's the way I act. It's the way I treat one another. We are not egotistical. We are loving. We're compassionate, but we're still strongly driven to do the right ethical thing, and that's not words. Ethics is not words. Ethics is action. And I don't care how many people tell me how ethical they think they are or how much integrity they have. Those things don't exist if the things you do with and to other people do not resemble those words.
And it's being a Christian or a believer in Christ. In order for me, I look at myself and I go, if I'm around someone that does not have that belief, does not know, does not have a relationship, I need to be that person to show them, oh, you're a Bible thumper, you're a fanatic, you're this. No, I'm not. And I need to expound that. I need to illuminate that fact of myself, that I need to show them what that relationship and what we're supposed to really be like, because there's plenty of them out there that don't. Yeah. And it scares them away from a relationship with Jesus Christ, which is unfortunate. Yeah. I feel like I need to live up to that the same as a leader. I need to show them what right looks like. And when I'm not right, I got to be humble enough to go, I messed up, and now I need to go back and check myself and fix it. And so a lot of those things kind of come into like being a good, solid, sound leader. Show them what right looks like and live it. And then you have to live above everybody else. This is everyone else's standard, and you have to live up here.
We've talked about this before. I think and really believe that there's a difference between the I know it all leader and the servant leader. I would personally like to work for more of a servant leader someone who has the principles and the ethics and the drive to do the right things the right way and help me grow as a person, versus that person who's the ego-driven guy who just wants to bark out orders so that his quiver is filled. I still believe we're supposed to build people. Even if we're at the top of the game, we are supposed to be building people to be better than they were when they came into the room.
I've learned more, maybe not more, but just as much from bad leadership and what not to do.
Yeah.
You know, you ever say that when you're a kid? You know, you're looking at your parent. I mean, I still hear it all the time from my kids, like my daughter at least.
I'm not going to do that.
When I'm a parent, I'm not doing that.
And then they become a parent and do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I told my dad he was right so many times in my later years. Yeah. You know, man, I'm sorry, man. I just different perspective, different point of view. Mm-hmm. You know, good leadership and bad leadership can give that to you. And, you know, you talk about being a Christian, and I believe we talked about this, and, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up, fellas. Right? I like to picture my Jesus wearing a Spartan helmet, covered in the blood of his enemies, with a flaming sword.
The warrior Jesus.
I think that's every
The
day.
warrior Jesus. I think I
Yes.
get that every morning.
So-
Welcome, Pastor. I talking about the warrior Jesus today.
You know, I mean, these dudes were not soft back then, you know, and you can still have faith. I mean, look, you look at Vikings, man, they believe, they had faith, right? I'm not here to debate their faith. I'm just saying they had faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Samurai, ninjas. I mean, all these historical warrior cultures, they had faith, right? That's something that they all had in common, right? I'm not telling you what to believe or how to believe. Just telling you to believe. Believe. Believe in something.
Well, I think without a doubt, when it comes to being men of ethics, I think it's a spiritual thing, because it all begins in the spirit of the heart. Ethics comes from the spirit of the heart. We can teach ethics in class, but if you don't have the spirit in the heart, the chances of them taking root, slim to none. Slim to none.
So, do you read at all, Chris?
Lately, I haven't read as much as I used to read. Right now, I'm reading, I don't remember the name of the author, but The First 90 Days. So, and we're going through, in a sense, what we're doing with the place we work at, the foundation we work at, we're going through basically a realignment. We're not doing a complete tear down and rebuild. It's a realignment of what we've always been doing, but just to improve it. And the great thing about that book is it talks about journaling. It talks about how to schedule your day. It talks about what to focus on in the first 90 days, how to plan and get a head start on everything you need to get done. And I read that the first time I arrived here on ground. I think it was August of 2022. And I dusted it back off and pulled it back out because of the position that I've now been entrusted to move us forward. And it's kind of helped a little bit. Obviously, I've only been doing it now for 2 weeks. I can tell you, like, when a lot of your peers don't necessarily expect you to be the one to take over, it's a roller coaster ride for the first week and a half. It was, you have allegations that come out that there's no merit to them. You have people that want to tell you like what you've done wrong in the past, and you take it with stride. You know, you're like, okay, maybe from their perspective, that's what I did do. You know, and it's not necessarily eating crow. It's incubate, right? Take it in and incubate on it, you know, and then go, okay, what's the best way to come forward with that, and go, how can I make it better? The good thing about some of those conversations is when you find out that, you know, certain individuals don't feel like they've been heard. So most of your day turns into trying to make everyone feel like they're important and they're heard, and they all are. But it's also like, I think it's going to be I think the hardest thing I'm going to have to do is get the leaders, their leaders, to hear them out. Because see, to me, if communication was running properly, if they brought ideas, concerns, issues, great, all these things to their leader, and their leader shared it with me and communicated it up as much as I would tell them to communicate something down, which that also can be, that also doesn't happen on a normal or regular basis. That's got to improve. But if I heard a great idea, to me, I think is what would really capture that individual would be if I walked up to them and said, hey, so-and-so came up to me yesterday and told me about this idea you had. You know what that just did? That reinforced that the lowest guy on the ground or the lowest person on the ground communicated an idea, and it made it all the way up to the president of the foundation. And then I personally came back down and said, this person said this, that you came up with this idea. What does that do? It reinforces communication, trust up the command, and then it brings it back down going, oh my gosh, he actually heard me. And to me, it builds that trust between that person, that leader, and it makes a stronger bond.
So that's where I was kind of going, and I heard you drop a couple, Easter eggs, along the way. Saturate, incubate, illuminate.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
So,
Pete Blaber, baby.
So
The mission, the men, and me.
What your favorite book was? Not necessarily, and it's a great thing to read. You don't know what you don't know.
Obviously, that one, I really like that one because like I said in the first podcast, that it takes me back to when I was in E5 and running and gunning with my crew. But that book, there's so much you can pull from that. Don't get treated by a chihuahua. That's a great one. And if you want to know what that is, you got to go get the book. All right, go read the book. And no, I'm not plugging Pete Blaber, the book. I'm saying it
was a good book.
It's a great read. It's worth getting. It's worth reading that. So you can get an audiobook too. So, but I like that book. Another one I think that I think I'm going to recommend for those that have never had an addiction that work with us. I'm going to recommend that they read Fearless. And I'm trying to remember the person's name. And it was a Navy SEAL that wrote the book. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I read this book almost 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And he wanted to be a SEAL. I believe he quit his addiction
To be a SEAL.
to get through selection and to do those things. And I think at some point he was forced. I don't remember all the details, so don't kill me in the comments for it. But I believe is what happened was that he was forced to take leave or forced to take a break because he was doing back-to-back missions.
Wow.
And during that time frame, he relapsed. And it was the SEALs kept him busy. And I think it's important that us that don't have an addiction like that when they don't have a routine and they don't stay busy, this thing that we have never felt before in our life is constantly going, hey, you know what tastes good right now? And that's constantly on their mind, especially when they're doing nothing. They have to have a routine. They have to stay busy. And he made it very clear to his chain of command. He self-reported, and they helped him. And he basically made it clear to them, I must be doing stuff. I can't ever do that again. And at that point, he was still successful.
I've got it on my phone, and it's on my list. And I started it, but I'll read 5 or 6 books at a time. And depending on what mood I'm in, I'll go to one or the other. That I'm listening to an audio version of the Bible, right? And it's 99 hours I mean, that's a lot. And I'm on Isaiah, chap. I think I'm 2/3 of the way through.
He's getting there.
So I still have 40 hours to go, but I recommended this to my kids. You know, take a book that you enjoy reading, or something that you listen, you know, something that you like to read, something that you're interested in, you know, and then maybe a professional development book. You know, I mean, there's so many different things. I was having this conversation with my sister. I was talking to her about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, there's all these different things that you can do. And I don't want to call them manipulation, but it's just knowing humans and knowing how to talk to humans. Eye contact, right? Whether you sit across from somebody or sit beside somebody based off of gender, right? I didn't come up with this. It's science. But it works, right? When you have somebody happy, putting your hand on their shoulder, they're going to associate that happiness with you now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it works both ways. If they're pissed and you put your hand on their shoulder, that could have one of two effects, right?
Good.
The way your eyes point, right? Whenever you're telling a story or whenever you're talking to somebody.
We know scientifically that our body language speaks loud. And in many cases, our body language can speak a totally opposite truth than what your mouth is moving with. And that's psychology. Psychologists love the microaggressions. They love to watch the eyes move. Are you happy? Oh man, I'm happy as a lark. And you're over here clenching your fist and your throat's, I'm happy. I'm having a great day. My wife loves me. Okay. And he's looking, or she's looking at you and saying, dude, you got a problem, you know?
Right.
You know, and so it's really true. And then we are nothing but a communicator. Our body communicates constantly and consistently, either to us or to other people. And that's why I always have to go back to that mind and that heart and that spirit all being connected, because this matters.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so does a smile.
It does.
So does a happy look. So does a, hey, glad you're here today. That matters, especially if someone's having a bad day.
I've got two more questions I want to ask. I don't want to see you squirm, but I kind of do.
Let's do a little editing zoom in for the squirm.
Let me give you one more book, right?
Okay.
What I like to read for fun. I enjoy the Bourne series.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
like that.
The movies are awesome.
I like those. And I guess I'll also give you, like, obviously we already brought up like Richard Marcinko. Regardless of what anyone feels about him, like, I enjoy reading the books.
Rogue Warrior.
Yeah, I enjoy reading the heck out of those
Absolutely.
books. So,
OG, triple OG, man.
yeah,
Hey man, I like to watch Sniper. I like that movie, man. Sniper.
yeah, that's a good one.
The Killing Floor, was that book adaptation?
I think so. Maybe it's possible. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I know it was a really cool book to
Gray
read.
Man.
It was great. Gray Man.
Oh yeah, that's a
That
good
was
one too. Yeah, that's a good one.
There's like 13 books in that series. Terminal List, they did an Amazon adaptation. I think they're on book 7 right now. I love stuff like that, man. I mean, I can't get enough. I'll read that book and then I'll have to buy the next one because I want to know what happens. Right, so now I'm waiting on the next release of those books. Those are great time killers, right? And they get your imagination going. And I mean, they're entertaining, man. I mean, they're fun to read.
They are. Yep.
I like it. I'm going to check out the Bourne series.
I enjoy them. There's a ton of books for them. So
I wish they made more movies.
well, they have another one coming out.
Yeah, no.
They're in the process of making. I think what number 6? I think
Something
is what
like
they're.
that.
Yeah.
Of course, they had the original Bourne guy was Matt.
Damon.
Yeah.
Well, they're bringing him back.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh, they are.
He's doing this next movie.
Oh, he's in the next one.
Yes.
His name is always mentioned in all of them.
Yes.
He's got this this ghost-like participation in these other shows. But
Well, it's like his Tom Cruise series.
yeah, exactly.
Bro,
Exactly.
That dude's awesome. Man. Like, I mean, however you want to feel him, dude. He's like 60 or 70, and he's still jacked, man.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, he's still doing it. He's killing it, right? You ever heard that term?
Oh, but I bet you he hurts though. I bet you it
I'm not
hurts.
saying he's not, but hey, man, Scientology must be working. So I don't know. I've never met a hater doing better than me.
There you go.
No, hey, no. Regardless of what anyone thinks of him himself, man, I love his movies.
Yep.
Absolutely, yeah, great actor. Like hands down, awesome.
No doubt.
He's really little.
Yeah.
He's really little. He's short.
Yeah. What's your other question?
He wants to see me squirm, so yeah.
I'm ready for the squirming part.
So I asked you, I alluded to about politics in the military. You
Yep.
said it got real political, and I know what you mean by that, right? Not political affiliation, but you have to be PC, right? You have to, and same thing.
You want me to answer what I didn't say, right? Go ahead.
I want you, and I've never asked this question of you as far as I've known you because I avoid it, right? There's not, whenever, one of my rules, you know, when I had guys working with me, no politics, no religion, and no family, right? Wars have been fought over all three.
Yep, absolutely.
And it used to be taboo to bring up politics.
Yeah.
But I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. And, you know, if you're not comfortable with it, we can edit it out. But I want to know what your political affiliation is.
So I lean more conservative than anything else. I think there's a few on the more liberal or Democrat side that every once in a while they pop up that I'm like, yeah, that's actually not too bad, but I think they're more right. They're more of a far right Democrat or liberal than they are a full blown conservative. And a lot of that, I think it goes in a par with like, stay the hell away from my freedom because you're gonna get a gun in your face. That's my attitude with it. We have individual, inalienable rights, that God-given rights that He gave us. Stay out of my business, and it's like I don't come over and get into your business. Stay out of my business, and I'm never going to give up my guns. I will never give up my guns. Not going to happen. Because I see what happens. I see what's happening everywhere else. The Australians are freaking hating it right now. They wish they would never give up their guns. So it's like, not all of them, but the ones that see what's coming, they do. So I tend to lean in a direction that's going to protect more of my rights. Now, do I still think we're a bit of a slave to a system? I absolutely do. I think we are. And I don't think it's going to get any better, but of course I believe in a book that tells us it's not going to get better. Not until the second coming.
Yep.
So for me, I'm like, hey, just sit down, strap in, and hold on tight, man, because we're just going to keep going in this direction, and all you can do at this point is protect your friends and family and try to be that man that others will emulate of peace and goodwill. Show them what God should be, like what you should be. You should emulate God as much as possible. Am I perfect by any means? No. But that's the way I lean. So if you want to ask me who I'd vote for, if I'm picking between somebody else and I'm picking and it's between him and Trump, you know where I'm going. I'm going Trump.
Hillary.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Or Kanye.
Yeah. There's no way.
You're probably going to get this kicked off now, but that's cool with me. I mean, I think part of the problem we have in this country. See, now you triggered me.
That was the other.
Am I going to
get
us kicked off, or are you going to get us kicked off?
I'm going to go for it. I'm going for it.
And I'm just going to say, I'll say it's.
And I've got the worst mouth out of all three of us.
I'm going to tell you right now. Like when you look at it, it's like I have a guy. Look, I have a guy that's on a stage that you're trying to put in front of me that I have concerns that if that was my grandfather up there, I'd want to take out the individuals around him that are not protecting him because he looks like a fool.
I feel bad for the dude. Right?
I absolutely do. And to me, it's like for those that are not going to protect him, like how could his wife let that happen? How could anyone let that happen? He looks like a fool. And it's like, is he cognitive enough to know that? And it's like, I'm embarrassed for him. I don't think it's fair to him. But maybe for him that he's okay with that. I don't know, but I'm not his doctor. I think right now, if you have to pick between the two, that's where I go. Do I think there's better? Absolutely. Can we get someone younger?
What about a vet?
A vet?
I'm available, y'all.
Well, then what are you doing?
I'm available. I'm available.
Well, didn't you get a phone call? I thought you got a phone call.
It wasn't the right one. You know.
Man, I've been listening to a lot of Eric Prince, and he was the former owner of Blackwater, and I've been listening to him on the Sean Ryan show, and that dude is brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome, like very intelligent, very down to earth. I mean, I'd love to have a beer with the guy, but man, I mean, I just pick his brain and just listen to some of his stories. But I mean, why not a vet? How are you going to send people to fight for their country when you don't know what it feels like in the first place?
Good point. I'm gonna just throw this out there. I'm feeling like we should get thrown off this week. I think it would be so fantastic if we could have a candidate, and I'm not going to mention names, political affiliation, because I don't look at either one. What I look at, I'm looking for character, love of country, love of the Constitution, and someone who cares more about the validity and the value of the American people than themselves or a party. And I don't care which party it is. I'm looking for a person who can stand up in front of the people of this country and say, you matter more than I do. I'm not the key to this problem. You are.
Amen.
And get back to the Constitution.
Amen.
And get back to God. And get back to loving one another. I don't care what you look like. I don't even care where you came from. If you love this country, you love this Constitution, okay? Because if you start there, for me, God is at the top of the list, and it filters all the way through all those things. But if we just started following our Constitution and loving our people, I think we'd have different leadership. Just my opinion. Now, see that I think I saved the show. I didn't mention a name.
Well, I think
You did good.
I think it's better. It's like I think we've been stuck picking the lesser of two evils for many years, and that's my own opinion.
We've split our country. I say y'all did it. You got me rolling. We've split the country into two parts. We split the country into two parts. Party. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's not about voting for a party. It's about voting for the right person who stands for the right things, who can move our country in the right direction.
Isn't that how you stay in power, though? Divide and conquer?
That's how organizations and individuals, we call dictators, stay in power, yeah. So we probably should get off this subject.
And I
agree. Because I probably led us down a bad path. But
Yeah.
No. And if we do, so what? I mean, there's still freedom of speech. It's something we all fought for.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to be around people who care about each other. I really do.
Absolutely.
I mean, my life is getting shorter and shorter as I get older and older,
Sure.
older and older. And I really would love to just spend the time that I have left, 30, 40 more years, learning how to care about people more than myself and helping. I love watching young men and young ladies find a better way to live than listening to the teachings of the multimedia world and the social media world, which I believe is the biggest problem we have in our country today. But we need to get back to the basics.
I agree.
Spiritual truth, character, principle, loving your neighbor. And we'd be a whole different country if we just did that.
So you, not to diminish, anybody's point. You talked about, you're getting older and older and the time that you have left. And I'm going to ask Chap first to give you time to think about it.
Okay. All right.
I'll even lead.
This is the pre-squirm.
If you had 24 hours, I ask this question a lot of people because it tells you about their character. It tells you what type of person they are. It tells you whether they read or not. And I don't know where I heard it from, but I stole it from somewhere. It's mine now. But I'll share it. If you had 24 hours to spend the rest of your time with, or 24 hours just in general, right? Just around a campfire, having a beer, whatever it is you enjoy. There's no danger. There's no boundaries. You can ask him whatever you want to. Minus Jesus or a family member.
Right.
Who would it be?
And I'm gonna say this name not because I'm a pastor, not because I'm a man of faith, or at least I strive to be. I'm going to mention this man's name because I watched him stand in the midst of this country speaking a message that changed the literal direction of how many people thought, millions of people thought for a period of time. And during this man's lifetime, America looked at life differently. And I think he had a lot to do with it. And that's Billy Graham. If you really know the truth about him, he was a man of honor, a man of humility. This was a man who didn't go out to make a lot of money. In fact, he never paid himself that much at all. And yet thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people heard the things he had to say. And he didn't do it for the sake of being a celebrity. He did not do it so he could be a big, rich televangelist. He absolutely did it out of humility. This is a man who was so serious about his integrity that he wouldn't even walk into a hotel room by himself because he was concerned that somebody might have planted a woman in there. The man never stayed in a hotel room by himself. He's one of the only, if maybe not, he's one of the only common day evangelists, if we want to use that term, who never had a scandal. Never. Not one. He was a man of the utmost integrity. I just think it would be awesome to walk the path that he walked for a day, because I truly believe he worked very hard to be the exact type of man that God wants us to become. And he worked hard at it. He wasn't perfect, but he sure strived for it.
You really thought about that. I like that.
Yeah.
You need some more time, bro?
No, because I'd probably go to who I usually go. I mean, for me, it would be Bruce Lee. That's where I'd want to spend my time. Like if I had 24 hours with anybody, I'd want to study Jeet Kune Do, his concepts when I was younger, and just the way his mind and the way he thinks through how to overcome and adapt, like overcome adaptability. And it focuses more on oneself to be better for everybody else. So I mean, for me, like that's who I'd spend my time with. Like I would.
That'd be cool.
I mean, he's always been an idol since I was a kid. I mean, I hate to say it's an easy go-to, but since I was a kid, that's always been. I mean, do I have others that I would like to spend time with? Right. Yeah, but not for the same reasons. But for sure, like it's like the last time I was in Seattle, I was like, man, I want to get to his gravestone. Like I would like to actually go there, but for that guy to achieve what he achieved mentally, physically, it's like almost inhuman. And it was a mindset. Something in him just.
And he was young.
Yeah, something in him just. It's like a switch.
It was different. He was built different, that's for sure.
I mean, when you see a guy. So during some of the seminars I went to when I was like 18 or 19, you'd see home videos that you don't see on TV. You don't see them. You could see the guy do push-ups and do a jackknife from a push-up and back down on his fingers. And you're just like, how in the heck? You'd see him flip up onto a 12-foot high ceiling and push his feet off and come back down. You're just like, and this guy was not a gymnast.
Right.
That's not what he did every day. You know, you expect a gymnast to do something like that, but just for me like that, what was the one thing that just made that switch? Because you could see him in his 20s, you know, had a little bit of body fat on him, wasn't as quick, wasn't as crisp, but then all of a sudden something happened, boom. I'd want to know what that was. What happened?
That's pretty good.
So who's yours?
I want to share something before I share that. I asked my kids the same question, and one of them, we were having a group discussion on a recent family vacation, and one of them said Trump, right? And I've never thought about that, right? But you think about, this is arguably one of the most polarizing and hated men in America. Yeah. And how does he shoulder that? Like every day. Like I asking him questions like, bro, why did you say that? Like, what were you thinking or what? You know what I mean? Like, over a beer or, maybe, chewing on some mushrooms or something with the dude. I don't know.
McDonald's. He loves McDonald's.
Hey, man. I mean, I think they have a mushroom burger. But, I thought it was interesting because I had never thought about that. And so to answer your question, mine would be Joe Rogan. I didn't know much about the guy, right? But now I listen to him on a regular basis. And you almost feel like you know the guy because you listen to him so much. And he can make you laugh. He's not afraid to have a good time, or he can be serious. He has some fantastic guests that are well-read, well-traveled, well-versed, whether it be a doctor or a politician. And honestly, it's changed the way that I've looked at a lot of things. I asked you the political conversation or the political question earlier. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be right up, there's things that I agree with on the right. There's things that I agree with on the left. I don't define myself as anything. I define myself as me. If I had to, it would be a libertarian, right? I mean, freedom above all else, right? That's what the country was founded on, was freedom. But this dude could make you laugh. You could have some deep, good conversations with him. He's a car guy. He's a gun guy. Every now and then, he was smoking weed with Elon Musk on one of his podcasts. While they were shooting, on one podcast, he was shooting arrows and bullets at a new Tesla. Bro, that dude's a good time, right? But you would enjoy it, or I would. You know, and I mean, again, he's very well read. He interviews so many interesting people that he just wants to talk to. And, you know, I mean, I'd love to sit down with him and just hang out with him, man. Have a beer with him, you know, and just talk to the guy.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of folks that it would be really interesting to sit down with for different reasons.
Right.
They're just odd people. I like to hang out. I like to listen and sit around with some of the odd people, you know. But then I would love to sit around and discuss politics with Churchill or, you know, people like that who are just way over here, or spirituality with, you know, a great pastor, a great preacher, or a warrior. I'd love to find an MOH that could just sit here and tell me what war was like for him or her, you know. So, you know, life is filled with unique situations and circumstances.
I'm working on that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have a MOH on our podcast soon. I can't wait for that. And so, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. But and then come back. But people are just so fascinating. Even this guy's fascinating to me. And so, that's what we're here for.
Churchill's one of my top 5.
Yeah.
I'd want to sit down with him.
I grew up listening to him speak when I was young, and very cool, you know, very cool. So,
well, do you? I think I got all my questions answered today.
Do you want me to wrap up where I've left, like after the summer?
Yeah.
So I can kind of.
Any other points we didn't miss, brother? Or we missed?
Well, no, I think at that point, like I left. So after being a first sergeant, I got promoted. I went to the Regional Training Institute, the 177th Regional Training Institute out of Michigan. I was an operations sergeant major there, and we talked about it in the last podcast. That was around that time frame, about 2.5 years into that, or about 2 years into that tours when my son passed away. And then that's what kicked me to move out of the military. But let's go back to that politic statement. So remember how I talked about command clasp or like waivers in order for you to be in a command position?
Mm-hmm.
I had a reserve, or I should say, I don't like to say part-time. Command sergeant major walk up to me, and he had asked me, he's like, so where would you like what is like, he was like, so was like the G3 shop like your holy grail? Because that's usually what it is for us active guard operations guys, right? I'm like, no. I'm like, why would I want to stop there? He's like, well, where else are you going to go? I was like, I want to be state CSM. And he was like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, says who? He's like, well, those are for us M-Day guys. I'm like, where does it say that at? Remember, I was in the Inspector General's office.
Right.
Where does it say that? Well, that's just an unwritten rule. It's against policy. And I was like, and that's why I want to get the hell out. Because you guys seem to think you know better than everybody else. And there's politics behind you wanting to pick who gets to sit at that seat. And that's what made me go, I'm done with the Michigan Guard. And it wasn't the Michigan Guard was the problem. It was the individuals at certain levels that sit there and seem to think that they know better than everybody else. And it's like, what? So because I'm not an M-Day sergeant major, I can't ever be a state CSM? Well, then I guess since I'm done, and of course this was after my son passed away, I might as well get out.
Why not?
You're telling me I can't get any higher than that position. I'm like, I might as well not stay. So the state of Michigan lost me because of that statement, and I left.
Yeah.
So I got out, and it obviously was a culmination of that and my son passing away. So I went ahead I went and worked for a security firm out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was their director of I was their general operations director.
There you go.
So if you didn't catch that, what's the acronym for general operations director? They did that on purpose. I did that. I did that for about 8 or 9 months, I believe. And I think at the time the owner, he he was taking on some contracts that I didn't agree with, and I told him at any point in time that I did not feel comfortable with what we're doing, I would walk away. Well, he took on a contract that I did not agree with. I told him he needs to get rid of her. I'm gone. And it turned into, well, let's talk about it. I'm like, there's nothing to talk about. And I walked away because it would endanger the people that we're working for. So I'm like, nope, I'm gone. Cleared out my desk, left. And then from there, I went and worked at Ducati Detroit. I was there working for, I was there as their parts guy for a period of time because I was like, I'm just going to do something fun.
Yeah.
I'm into motorcycles. So I've been riding since I was 19 years old. Obviously, that's how my son passed away. So I've been in 3 motorcycle wrecks, basically laid my bike down 3 different times. But I went and worked for them. Then they ended up moving me over to be in like the parts, or not, I'm sorry, the like the service write-up, service manager guy. And there was a period of time where, and I loved it. I was doing track days.
There you go.
It was great. Like, it was my passion. So I was like, yeah, this is great, man. I'm having a good time. Something came along to where they wanted to move me back into parts, and I won't get into the why. I know exactly why they wanted to move me back into parts, and it was one of those things that made me leave my last job.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to
go
go ahead.
Move on to the next job.
So I went ahead and left. So during this time frame, this is about COVID time frame. So we're looking at about 2020, the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And at the time too, like, so being that in Michigan, being that it's underneath the license, the business license is underneath a automotive industry, they could stay open during COVID. And you're like, how does a high-end motorcycle dealer stay open during COVID? But okay, whatever. So we still got to keep our jobs and still got to work,
Somebody
right?
got some stock in it.
Yeah. No, I don't. However it worked out, the license, we could still work. So we were still working, but my wife, she worked for the chief of staff's office at the time for the Michigan Guard, full time. So she was a sergeant major at the time as well. And I was like, man, if I get COVID and I take it home to my wife, then she takes it to the chief of staff of Michigan Guard, and then all of a sudden the whole entire chain of command gets taken out. You know what I'm thinking? I'm like, you know what? Like, just because I left doesn't mean I want to cripple, right, our force. And at the time, you're still like, is this thing really real? Is like COVID really that deadly? Is it whatnot? I mean, we've lost. I lost some friends during it. One of the guys I used to ride with that I met through Ducati Detroit was also an Army vet.
Yeah. And
he ended up passing away from all the lung issues he got from it. So I said, you know what? With a combination of the few things, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to work. So I sat on my rear end for about a year, and was at home, hung out with my dogs, dirt biked, hit track days, had a great time. And then I was like, I can't keep doing this.
got bored.
Absolutely. I was like, I need purpose. So I started applying for jobs. And the places I was putting in for, it was like senior associate positions at other firms and other business firms. And I would make it top tier, last, like, between me and another person. And two of the positions, there's a guy that worked, that was one of the soldiers I got off the CI school, counter intel course when I was a readiness NCO. He wanted me to put him for one of his old jobs. And then when that didn't pan out, I put out for a job working for him. And I won't name the places out of respect for him. And basically it came down to the feedback I got was, you should put in for my boss's job, is what he said. That's what the boss's boss said. And then, or they were intimidated by me. So I was like, great. So I got to act like an idiot in my interviews. That's so I don't intimidate people. So I went ahead and I was like, all right, fine. And that's when I was just like, you know what? All right, God, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here on this couch. I'm going to hang out with my dogs. I'm going to do track days. I'm going to dirt bike, and I'll just keep doing this.
Hang out.
Right. So basically what was I doing? I was throwing it on the altar. I was like, if this is what you want me to do, and I think that's what it took for him to go, okay, you're ready. So I got a phone call 20 minutes later to come to Houston, Texas to be an operations director for the nonprofit that we work for right now. And of course, when I saw the number, it was a guy that I deployed with in 2003. And I knew exactly why he was calling me, because he had talked to me a year before and they didn't hire me at the time. And I was like, you got to be effing kidding me. And I looked up and I said, Houston? And that's what I did. And
It's
I was
not
like,
that bad.
and I looked at my wife and I was like, and she's like, you got to be effing kidding me. And I'm like, she's like, well, I guess we're going to Houston. And that's how I ended up here in Houston. And I'm not saying Houston's bad. We came to Texas. We were hoping to move to Texas to be in hill country, but I think everyone would like to be in hill country. So
That's going to be our new slogan. Houston. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. But
So-
the hill country is not that far
From Houston.
from Houston.
so that's it in a nutshell, man. Like that's,
So here you are.
That's my life. That's how I got here. I got 2 beautiful daughters. One of which goes to college in Virginia Beach area, and then another one that's in Colorado going to school, which I have to go pick her up here in about 2 weeks. My wife, we still have a home in Michigan, so she hangs out there most of the time. And right now, I think her and I are both trying to feel out exactly what's going on. Obviously, I got picked up for interim president of the foundation that we work for, and that, I think that's really going to determine, if it's good for them and it's good for me and my family, then it continues. Because they already made it pretty clear to me that if everything is on the up and up and they like what I've done so far before any of this happened,
Right.
at least the board did. They were pretty much like, the odds are it's going to be your job. As long as you keep doing what you've done before, this job's going to be yours when the time comes. So I told them, hey, I'll give you 6 months, and in 90 days, maybe if it's not good for you or if it's not good for me, I'll help you find what you're looking for. And they were like, well, we don't want you to leave. And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm like, I'll help you find what you're looking for if I'm not that. Like, I'm that humble to go, I know if it's outside of my depth and wheelhouse, I'll step back. So, and that's pretty much where I'm at right now. Obviously, there's some other stuff that was in the works that I kind of like told them about, and I was like, well, I was working with a group of guys to do a business plan on something else, and I'm like, I don't want to put that on hold, but I'm like, maybe I look at it as a different role to continue moving that along, but hopefully be a partner to the foundation at some point, and hopefully we can continue making it work that way. So that's, in a nutshell, that's pretty much where I'm at. Like, and it's been great. Like, you guys are probably the family I have here in Houston.
You're the brother. I'm the dad.
And I'll share this. Like, the one thing I never talked about in either podcast was, I think I mentioned my biological father. He's the one that has schizophrenia, and he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, is medicated for it. He lives in Dallas and he lives near my aunt on that side of the family. So I didn't know him until my first deployment. So before my first deployment, my ex-wife at the time was like, do you want me to hunt him down before you ship out? And I was like, yeah, do that. So I wanted to meet him before I went off to war the first time in case something ever happened to me. Because I'm sure he wondered, I'm sure my aunts wondered whatever happened to this nephew or this son of mine.
Right.
And so I've been in contact with them. I maintain relationships with them. I go and visit them every once in a while. But that's probably, and I said I have one sister. I actually have two half sisters. One through my mother, who was my stepdad, and then one through my biological father that he had with somebody else. And she lives in Michigan. I've met her one time. So that's probably the one thing I didn't bring up. But for me, I thought it was good for him to see the decision that him and my aunts made to finally let go of me. That my dad, Jay, where I get my last name, Knight, that letting me go gave me opportunities that I would have probably not have had with him. And I think like I wanted him to see that the decision he made, what kind of a man it made me. So he could see that he might regret to a certain degree, but that sometimes we have to let go in order for good things to happen. And I think is what it did for them is that it showed that that was the best decision at the time for myself, and that they could be proud of what they did and let go. Yeah. You know, so to them, like to have that kind of, I know at first it wasn't easy for them, but I think like over time, and they see what you become, it's like it kind of makes me look back on my son when I lost custody of my son. I think it sucked. Because there's a lot of lost time. I don't regret it, but I think that's what was meant to be. That's how things were supposed to go, and I can accept that.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I think it's been great hanging out, talking a little bit, laughing a little bit, talking a little bit politics. Hope the show's still on the air next week. But I think that when we just let go, sometimes we just give it to the world and say, take it or leave it. But Christopher, I am so honored to be your friend and for you to be mine. And it's unusual for older fellas to say that to younger fellas. But I love working with you, and I'm so grateful that you've been able to come into my life and be an example for me to even look up to. And there's not a lot of young people I look up to, I'm going to tell you. But you're one of them. And I think as we just keep going, Bear, we continue to encourage people. We want this society to get back on the right track. And that's my hope and that's my prayer.
Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I'll echo what Chap said. I'm damn fine to know you, brother, and I'm glad to call you a friend. You know, even more so family.
Yep.
I look for guys that, you know, in my tribe that can mentor me and, you know, selfishly give me something as much as I give them. Mm-hmm. So I've learned a lot from you. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you sharing your story, being so open and honest. You know, the world needs more of that. It absolutely needs more of that.
No doubt.
So, appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate you. Okay. Glad to call you my brothers.
Yeah. And hey, guys, if you want to become part of the Chaos Project tribe, I need you to subscribe so that you can see everything we talk about. If you've got some ideas, if you've got some topics that you'd like us to talk about, as you can see, we are not scared to talk about topics. We'll jump right out there and give you what we think about. And we love the hard ones. We love the challenges. We want to dialogue with each other because we don't want anything left on the table. We want to grow. We want to be better. We want to lead. We want to learn. We want to teach. So if you want to be part of the tribe we call the Chaos Project, where you can hang out with Bear, Christopher drops in every once in a while, and we're going to keep getting him to come by. And I want you to subscribe, hit the like button, hit any other button that pops up when we send it out there. I don't even know what the buttons are, but just hit them and say, I like it. Feel free to send us notes, messages, and the ones that we like, we'll answer. The ones that are ugly, we're going to throw away. But the Chaos Project, I'm Billy.
This is Bear.
Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.